Hey, um, good morning, girl. How are you doing today? Let's see, just moving this. How are you doing today? Um, let me just take a moment. One moment. Ah, I'm doing good this morning. I woke up a little bit late this morning. I kind of slept in, which is good because it had been a hectic week. And I really am pleased when my body sort of takes over and takes over my thinking mind and just does whatever it wants to do, particularly when it makes me sleep in a little bit more than I anticipated. So I am more than pleased, more than happy when my body does that because, you know, it helps me get to know what actions are essential to my body, right? When my body takes over and just yeah, for example, I really like when I get thirsty. Like, oh yeah, that's my body telling me I'm thirsty. I like to sense those signals because well, it lets me know that I'm on the right track, right? I've got another thing that I'm happy about is I'm more than happy to feel pain, like physical pain, because that physical pain is an indicator that I either need to start or stop doing something. And I like having that feedback because sometimes, when you just don't, when you're just sort of in an enjoying blissful state all the time, sometimes you wonder, am I doing it right? There's, I want indicators. I want sort of guardrails. I want train tracks that help guide me in a certain direction. And, thankfully, my biology is there to help me guide me in a direction. And, it's all of these sensory, motor, feedback control um, gadgets in my biology. I like when they work. I'm sure they're continually working, right? They're working on levels that even I'm not aware that they're working at. My brain cells are, there's diffusion going on continuously of the various macronutrients and nutrients that are going on in my body, but I don't sense that unless things are really out of whack and homeostasis really has to kick in. So anyway, I am pleased to have my body sort of tell me what to do at times. It lets me know what my limits are, right? And I also try to be sensitive to the feedback that I get from my body. What's also kind of funny is that sometimes I'll get feedback and I won't know what to do. Taking care of my human body is a lot like taking care of a baby. Babies can't talk, right? They can't communicate. They can only cry and um, they can just cry, right? And so, do you need to change the diaper? Do you need to feed it milk? Do you need to um, make it warmer or cool it off? The baby doesn't tell you these things, and the same is true with the body. The body doesn't necessarily tell you what's wrong. Like sometimes when I feel thirst, sometimes what I'm really feeling is hunger. And vice versa is also true. Sometimes when I'm feeling hunger, what I'm really feeling is thirst. In fact, it's happened many times when, for example, I feel really hungry and I say, oh, it's time to eat food. And so I eat and I eat and I eat some more and I eat some more. And it doesn't solve the problem. I'm still hungry. And I think to myself, whoa, something's out of whack here. I need to drink something. And sure enough, I drink about a liter of water and I'm feeling better in about 30 minutes and I'm not hungry anymore. Like, what was that all about? Well, the human body is like that all the time too. Like, here's another example. Like, I get blood work every once in a while when I go to the doctor's office. And, I look at the signals in my blood about, what's closer, further from ideal. And, I really do try to work on optimizing my blood test results by changing my diet or my activity level or losing weight or gaining weight or whatever. But it's hard because let's say my HDLs are low. My high density lipoproteins are low and I want to raise them. How do you raise them? I mean, what can you do? Eat fewer raisins? I don't know. It's not altogether easy. It's sort of like taking care of a baby. It's like, oh gosh, I don't know what to do to raise my HDLs. The body doesn't tell you. That's really why I sort of, we all have to rely on science to give us an indicator. I'm digging deep into clinical studies, trying to understand. Actually, for me, HDL is actually not on my mind. What's on my mind these days is I want to lower my triglycerides a little bit more. It's complicated. It's not, I've been doing research for a couple of days now, and I'm really just figuring out a plan to lower triglycerides. My triglycerides are within normal readings. It's just, I'm continually trying to optimize that, as well as other things like finances. Turns out I've just discovered that I've only got $10,000. My student loan is at about $10,000 right now. And so I'm only in debt to my student loan 10 grand, which I don't know, probably sounds a lot to you, but it's not a lot to me. I've been paying that sucker off, my student loan, for like 10 years already. And I'm so pleased that it's down to 10,000. And now that I owe only $10,000 on my student loan, it's actually getting into the realm of feasibility where I might be able to, where I feel like empowered to make an impact on the loan. Isn't that kind of funny? When the sort of the amount that I was in debt for my student loan was high, I just felt powerless to do anything about it and just paid the minimum. But now that it seems like it's within reach, $10,000 is not that much money. I feel like I can take action on it, and I feel more empowered now that it's a little bit lower. Isn't that weird? So I'm actually thinking I'm going to devote more time and energy to doing my best to reduce my student loan debt. Now, after only like trying to pay it off for 10 years. I'm not saying that my method's the best. In fact, um, if I were more fiscally responsible, I'd probably would have had it paid off by now. But I don't know. My mind has been elsewhere, I suppose. Focus a person. Now, I have a tendency. It's kind of funny. I'm back and forth in terms of I can be like really have attention in a lot of different directions at the same time, and then I can also be hyper focused. And I've been talking recently about how I'm noticing how my attention is becoming more sort of fragmented. All the notifications on my smartphone and the media, social media, is having its effect. But I am somewhat focused, and what that means is, anytime you say yes to something, you're also saying no to something else, and vice versa. Of course, of course. That's only logically true. And but so the point is that, I focus so much on certain parts of my life, improving it, say my relationships, um, my work, and I focus on, say, my home and its decor or my transportation. I'm always focusing in certain areas, and that necessarily means that I'm unfocusing in others. And these are choices I make. And one choice that I've made in the past is sort of defocus on some of my um, fiscal areas. Now, that's not to insinuate that my fiscal areas are not highly taken care of, highly curated, because they are somewhat highly curated. But I think I play an intuitive role. I've tried, believe it or not, I've tried a lot of methods to get my budget under control. I've tried YNAB, which is the You Need a Budget website, Microsoft Money, I've tried Intuit. Um, I'm about to see what I can do with QuickBooks and see what kind of things that QuickBooks can help me out with. But I also have tried envelopes, and I've used Excel spreadsheet, monthly budget techniques, and I just haven't been able to pull it together. I've used Mint, right? Mint.com. I've used lots of software products to help me wrangle my finances somehow. And regrettably, I have not figured out a way to make that fiscal responsibility stick. I mean, I'm fiscally responsible. That's actually not a great phrase for it. What I mean to say is, I want a budget. And I've tried a lot of methods to sort of maintain and keep a budget. And I'll tell you, I struggle with it. It's not an easy thing to do. Thankfully, I do have a really strong intuitive sense about my budget, and it's always kept me in the clear with plenty of margin. So that's nice. Thankfully, I have instincts which are accurate. And but you know what? I've got this sense that I could do a lot better. I just haven't found the key that unlocks the lock yet. I'm pretty certain I'll get there eventually, like in about 20 or 30 years. I'll develop a budgeting technique that I can live with. At least I'm optimistic about that. I'm highly optimistic about eventually getting some semblance of control over my finances. Yeah. It was an area of focus for me for a while. I remember one time I was doing coupon clipping. That's when I was with your mother. Um, I did coupon clipping for a little while, and you know what? I kind of enjoyed it. Or at least it started out fun because I was learning new things, and it was exciting. It takes courage and curiosity. I was getting the coupons in the newspaper, and I was cutting them out, and I was placing them in file folders, and I was planning my shopping around the coupons that I was clipping. One thing I noticed was that the products that I would buy very rarely had any kind of coupons associated with them. So, in fact, what I also found was that the coupons were steering my purchases in ways that I didn't like. It was a lot of processed food. There's a lot of meat and dairy products, and it was like, man, I don't want to eat this stuff. Yeah, it's cheap. It's just not worth it, right? I don't want to put this stuff in my body. And a lot of the incentive programs focused on products that were new, right? And for me, I'm a man of habit. I'm a creature of habit. I like to use the same soap all the time, all day, every day. I don't like change, because once I get something dialed in and I get it integrated into my lifestyle, I like it that way, and I want to keep it that way. It means that I don't have to think about it anymore. I don't have to think about how the container empties or the quality of the product over time, or I don't have to think about cost fluctuations, and there's a lot I don't have to think about, and that takes a load off my mind. If I'm constantly shifting products from one product to another, it's like, it's a challenge, right? You know, it's a challenge to move from product to product to product to product to product to product to product. It takes up too much of my attention. So anyway, so there was that. And so all those factors sort of led me in a direction different than couponing. What's kind of funny too is I don't think that I got the benefit out of it that I probably could have. I was subscribed to a number of websites that were assisting me with selecting coupons that I wanted. Like I'd print out coupons on my smartphone, or I'd print out coupons. This is before smartphone though. I'd print out coupons on the printer, and so I was getting a lot. But here's the thing: I'd put a lot of time into my couponing efforts, and I'm talking about a couple hours, a week into couponing, and it wasn't paying dividends. My return on investment was not high. Yeah, I was saving $2 or $3 here or there, but I mean, pulling out the scissors and cutting out the coupons. I was a person who worked full time with a small family, had a home to take care of, and I was having some trouble with depression at the time, and I just didn't have time to do the coupons, man. I had enough struggling with other things. So anyway, couponing fell by the wayside. That was a while ago. I could always get into coupons again, but here's the thing, it just doesn't interest me. Saving 60 cents is just not going to do it for me. In fact, my time is valuable. And the older I get, the more valuable my time becomes. Yeah. So I'm like 47 years old now. I'm almost 48 years old. And there's also another factor. I just want to do the things that I want to do. Right? Couponing sounds too much like work, right? Wouldn't I rather read a book, sit down, curl up, cup of coffee with a nice book that I want to read? Absolutely. Absolutely. That sounds like a really high quality of life compared to pulling out the scissors, going through old newspapers, and throwing coupons in envelopes. No thanks. I'm serious. It's just not what gives me pleasure. It's not what pleases me. It's not what sort of honors and respects my time and energy. Yeah, so that's kind of the reason I'm not into coupons. How did I get into coupons? So how do you like my new hairstyle? I've got this Superman curl here that I'm working on. That's the point. I was thinking about this morning how I like curls because of their novelty, their unpredictability. Straight hair is dull, right? It's predictably boring. If I had some curls, boom, boom, things start getting exciting now. Things start getting interesting. Things get a little bouncy. And bounciness is good, man. So I like that from a novelty standpoint. Here's the thing about human beings that I know. Human beings love novelty. We cherish it. It's like artwork. It's like creating a work of art in your life. It's like your life is a piece of art. We like changing up our home decor. We like fashion, right? We wear different clothes every day, right? That's an indicator of just how much novelty it plays a factor in our enjoyment and our happiness in life. And I'm noticing that that is key. I really like this idea of novelty. In fact, one of the reasons I like school so much is because of all the novelty that it offers. You know, I'm continuously learning new things. It's not that I'm just learning things, it's that I'm learning new things. It's that sort of I'm doing things for the first time. And that novelty is stimulating. It's like, ooh, neat. It's sort of like being at a buffet eating dinner, right? You are scooping onto your plate food that you might not have tasted in a long, long time, or maybe never at all. And there's like, it's exploration, it's discovery, it's it's excitement, it's satisfaction of curiosity. It basically turns your meal into an adventure. And the same is true with dress and fashion. My dress, the way I dress every day, is basically essentially a costume. And with different costumes every day, I can go on a different adventure every day. People might look at me different. I might look at others different through different when I wear different costumes. And that's exciting, you know? That's adventure. In a way, that's living a life that's artistic, right? I have a friend, she has a real penchant for home decor. In fact, she's a home decorator. And boy, I'll tell you, her sense of home decor is amazing. And her sense of fashion is amazing too. I really admire how with accessories, there's different, she's got like hats, sunglasses, necklaces, watches, da 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 da, da jewelry, clothing choices. She can pull it together. She's really got a strong sense. She has this, I mean, it's a palpable love of beauty. And don't we all love beauty to some extent? And so, yeah, she's got this palpable love of beauty, and she's sharing this love of beauty with the people who are around her, her friends like myself. We really appreciate that aspect of her. And in fact, I not just appreciate her, but I admire her skill. You know, she's really pulling together what I call an artistic life. Her life is turning into a piece of art, and I just love looking at it. It's so gorgeous. I'm so glad that she shares her Instagram pics and her Facebook pics, and because they're so beautiful. I don't think she's like using Photoshop or anything. It doesn't have to do with her skill with photography. It's that she's got just this palpable love of beauty that shows in everything that she does, and it is a spectacle to watch, and I love it. It's one of the things I admire most about her. I kind of wish that I had that sense, really. I think the when it comes to fashion and clothing, I get most of my fashion uh, ideas from the Goodwill secondhand stores. What can I say, man? I'm special that way. um, yeah. So anyway, let me get to the point of this video. The serious point. What's the serious point? Well, the serious point is the title of this video. And let me get my iPad Pro going back here in the background. So this question is 320. What kind of kids did you hang out with in high school? That's the question of the day. What kind of kids did I hang out with in high school? Well, that's easy to answer. And I've answered it before. The kids that I hung out with in high school were the nerds. Well, we're actually not nerds. We were the kids in honors English, second period. And I hung out with this group of people, these students in my class, um, ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. And, I think we really bonded. And, we were in the same class. And there was some churn in the class. And by churn, I mean there were people who left and people who came in every year. But there was something about that class. There's some, at least for me, right, and my personality. For others, it might be their football team, right, or their cheerleader squad, right. For me, it was my English class. For others, I'm sure it was their math class, right, or maybe their friends after school. So, the kind of now, who are the kids that these were? I guess these kids were readers, right? They were people with ideas. They were people who were interested in the philosophy, social, political philosophy. They had ideas, man. There were some who were into Taoism and Buddhism, right? There were others who were into fantasy and fortune telling and the supernatural, right? Others were into practical things about the law, and they some were into rules. Others were into sci-fi, right? They read a lot of science fiction. I think a lot of them, though, really had sort of high standards when it came to, I don't know, excelling in class. They were reading the text. They were focused on getting the task done, getting the homework accomplished, and doing a good job, right? They put a lot of energy into their studies. These are the kind of people that I hung out with. And in fact, I'm super happy that this August 10th, 2019, I'm going to be flying out to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and visiting and having my 30-year high school reunion. Whoopee! So that's really good news. That's August. That's just around the corner. I mean, it's already April. April, May, June, July, August. Dope. Oh, man. I just realized I'm going to have to buy airline tickets for that trip. That's not a problem. The cost of an airline ticket from LAX to Albuquerque airport is only $250 round trip. I know. I can't believe it. It would easily cost me like $300 in gas to drive in a car on the ground by myself from where I live to Albuquerque, and that it costs less in the air is stunning to me. It's like, what? How's that possible? And here's the thing. I think that includes one break at a hotel, right? It's like an 18-hour drive, right? It's like, oh boy. I mean, that's a butt kicker right there. Sitting down for 18 hours driving a car. That is, I think I'd have a problem with that. I can drive in a day, 5 or 6 hours. I can do that. I can drive 6 hours, maybe 7 hours, and not go bonkers. And it's not that I would go bonkers. It's just that my body needs movement, right? I need to walk around. I need to run around. I need to do stuff. I need to lift things. Without regular movement, the thing about being in a car is that you're kind of stuck behind the wheel, right? You're sort of stuck in the seated position, right? Your arms are up here on the steering wheel and you're kind of sitting there for 7 hours just doing this. I mean, that is rough. It's rough on the brain too. The brain is just looking at the road for 7 hours out. I mean, how focused? I mean, I'm a focused guy, right? very high level of focus. At least I can have that level when I desire. But doing that for 7 hours is something that's just sounds painful. I mean, ay, 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 what a challenge. I would have to have a really good a playlist on the stereo in order to really enjoy that time. Or listening, I'd also I'd need to listen to a lot of cool audiobooks for that to happen. I know. So can you imagine like 18 hours behind a wheel? God, oh boy, that's rough. Now I used to do that trip all the time, a couple times a year. Um, we'd go on road trips, your mom and I, and maybe it wasn't a couple times a year, but it might have been once or twice, or once a year maybe, once or twice a year. It wouldn't be too much. But I don't know if I'm up to the task anymore. I'd much rather just take a 2.5 hour flight out there. I am not necessarily the keenest person on flying in airplanes. Like, yeah. I think I've mentioned to you before. I don't mind flying in airplanes. I could fly. I could fly all day. But I think in some respects I prefer to be on the ground. It has nothing to do with the technology. I trust the technology. The engineering has nothing to do with the engineering. It's just that if something goes wrong, it 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 could go very wrong. Whereas if you're on a car, stuff can go wrong all the time. I have stuff goes wrong all the time in cars, and somehow I've survived that all. Survived all of it. All right, so let me talk more about these kids that I grew up with. So these kids that I hung out with, what were they like? What were their personalities like? Well, they were tended to be on the intellectual side. They tended to be on the nerd side. I knew the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and all the secondary, third, tertiary, quaternary dictorians. And what's kind of funny was that some of them were actually quite competitive. They would talk to me about their strategies for getting an A, and they would choose AP classes that would offer them uh, uh, boosts in their GPA above the normal 4.0 scale, right? These were very intentional choices that some were making. And they were competing on a level of assignments. Like, I got an A minus on this exam, or I got a B plus on this exam, and my competitor, my opponent here, they got an A minus on it, and oh no, I got to work extra hard on the next assignment. It was kind of interesting to see how they were each jockeying. Well, not all of them, of course. Some of them, it was just I just had the appearance. They just it's just what they did, right? And for others, it was more a competitive sport. But that was an interesting insight into that. I hadn't sort of noticed. I certainly wasn't even contemplating that. Even though I got 33rd in the class, by the way, 33rd in the class in regard to GPA, that is the 33rd highest GPA. Not bad. Um, in fact, even today, I'm impressed by that. In my graduating class, I had the 33rd highest GPA. Not too shabby, man. So I was doing something right. Honestly, I don't know how I did it, because there were a lot of ways in which, as a kid, I might have struggled. For example, my 6-year-old brother died of leukemia while I was in high school. That's a drag. My parents got a divorce when I was in high school. And that's a drag. My mom moved out of from Taos to Albuquerque when I was in high school. Um, in fact, my mom also subsequently moved again, so there were a couple of moves, so there was some instability in my family. Not a lot, but not only that, I also had like four other four siblings. I had three brothers and a sister, and and then frequently I would walk to school. Right, there was extra effort involved getting to school, and I would walk back from school, and it wasn't necessarily a short distance either. I remember walking, taking, being a fairly considerable distance. I had to walk from school to home. And first of all, I just want to mention how much I enjoyed walking from school to home and home to school. I did a lot of walking back and forth from home to school. And you know what? I realize now that that was a big part of my life. You know, uh, I realize now that that was a significant part of my life. You know, walking to school is great. These I really got a lot of enjoyment and a lot of happiness, a lot of peace and serenity from my walks. When you're a kid anyway, when you're a teenager, you got energy. Like I know I had energy. I was eating like crazy. I was eating burritos. I was clearing out uh, the refrigerator of food, and I was just wired with energy. Like I just I had these hormones that were pulsing through my body, right? The testosterone was making itself known, and I had a lot to think about. My brain was growing, right? It was maturing, and changes were happening. Those nerve cells were just, I don't know, bustling, hustling, and bustling. And one big part of my life that I really was significant was the walking to and from school. There was something about it that was just relief, you know, peace, you know, and I cherish those moments. I have a lot of memories that are rising right now, or I would walk along the fence of a golf course on the way home on the way home from school. I remember walking through the parking lot in the rear of the high school as I was strolling home after school. And then I remember walks through canals and along streets and up and down the neighborhoods. Sometimes late at night, I would go on walks and I would explore the neighborhood and the areas around me. And first of all, Albuquerque, New Mexico was just a beautiful place to go on long walks because we had so much sunshine. The sun was out all the time, and every day was just a beautiful day, day after day after day. Gorgeous. Green water everywhere. Rains in the afternoons to monsoons. Nowadays, because of climate change, it's drier right in the desert. But when I was growing up 30 years ago, the town was just beautiful. It was green. In fact, I can imagine the trees and the insects and the rains in the afternoon. And, when I go back to that time, it's almost emotional. There was just so much beauty back then. There's beauty today. And thankfully, I live in California where I can mimic a lot of the um, external environment in terms of sunlight and moisture and vegetation and just the beauty of the area, right? I love the humidity, and I don't know. I just love that balmy kind of fresh green weather. It's I don't know. I just love it. So yeah, I did a lot of walking when I was in high school, and walking to the mall and walking to restaurants and walking around the business area, visiting with people. I had friends who would work nearby at the strip mall. I had a friend who worked at a dry cleaning establishment. And I'd go visit her every once in a while. And we also had some cheap movies nearby. Oh man! So I could walk from home and check out the movie theater, and I think the movie theater was like a buck or something. $1 movies. It was like classic movies. I mean, I was so lucky. And then there were restaurants like the Village Inn, and I certainly really loved the Circle K. I'd get these at the Circle K. Uh, like when I'd walk around, sometimes I'd get super hungry, and for like a couple of bucks, $2 or $3, I could get this honking big burrito, right? And this burrito was like 1,000 calories, right? And I would just consume it, romp. Those were good times. It's kind of funny how it's the burrito that is something that I remember in my long walks. Yeah, good times. One of the most beautiful things about being as old as I am is I have a lot of memories of the past. And I can always sort of fall back on my recollections of the things that I did in the past. And you'd be amazed at just how, emotion filled these experiences are and how much pleasure they give me. You know, it's sort of like a foundational psychological beauty that exists, like an enjoyment that exists. And I'm so grateful to have all that. It's kind of funny too, because I mean, I could just walk out the door and go for a walk today. But sometimes it's just easier to just reminisce about the past. So I was trying to pull myself back to the main point, and that has to do with the kids that I grew up with, the kids that I went to high school with, and what they were like. Well, the kids that I went to high school with, they were really interested in academics, right? And so, in fact, I was involved in academic decathlon. And now, academic decathlon is like a trivial pursuit, but for high school students. And we would compete against other schools, and we would get medals, like, gold, silver, bronze medals in our categories. And there was all kinds of different categories. One was speech. I got a gold medal in speech. I was a good speaker when I was a young boy. And I got a lot of silver and I got a lot of bronze. I probably walked away with like 6 or 7 medals in different categories. I'm serious. I did pretty well. Now there's some, here's the reason. Let me tell you, let me just lay it down. Why was I so smart in school? Let me tell you why. And in a way, I hesitate to say why. But here it is, the down and dirty, right? Letting you get some insight. The reason was religion. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and that means that we were doing Bible studies all the time. I was listening, I would go to school all day, all week, every weekday. And I would listen to lecturers, and the same thing would happen every Saturday and Sunday, every weekend. So I was literally listening to teachers every day out of the week. And after school, right? Jehovah's Witnesses, we go to 5 meetings a week. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So we went on to meetings on Tuesday nights. We went to meetings on Thursday nights. We went to meetings on Sunday mornings. We went to meetings on Saturday mornings. We went to a lot of meetings. And what did we do at these meetings? We studied the Bible, of course. And not only did we study the Bible, but we studied we studied the we studied the study aids that help people learn more about the Bible. So I was studying so much. I mean, no kidding. And not only would we study the study aids that studied the Bible, but we would also study those. We would have our own separate study sessions. Like I remember like we would on days that we didn't have meetings, we'd study for the study meetings. I kid you not. So this is probably why I'm so focused on study today. I don't know about you, but I'm reading an hour a day every day. I'm still doing homework all the time. I'm still reading my textbook. Oh my gosh. So here's why I was so good at school was that I never did anything else. With religion and school combined, I was like studying all the time, studying and speaking and studying and speaking. It was crazy. So, I mean, here's the thing. If you are a parent and you've got 6 kids, how do you spend their time? It's kind of funny too. So how do you efficiently and effectively spend their time? Well, you put them, you give them a chair, set them at the table, and have them study something. Have them study something so complicated that they'd never understand it, and have them continually study it. I'm thinking about the Bible and all this Bible study aids. And then what's kind of funny is that our vacations focused on study too. I know this is craziness. I know. So in my family, not only did I go to school every day and study there and to do my homework, but I also went to church and I did the studying for church. I did the studying in church and I did the studying to prepare for church. And then vacation time, you would think, oh, Miguel would get this super relief and not have to study anymore. Wrong. Wrong. So the vacations we would go on were the conventions, our religious conventions that would happen in different places. Some were in Amarillo, Texas, some were in Denver, Colorado, some in Los Angeles. Our family would drive, like we'd spend the whole weekend to go on vacation at the place these conventions were, these Jehovah's Witness conventions. And what were the conventions anyway, but times when we would pull out our suits and our formal clothes and we would go get a quick breakfast at Jack in the Box out of our hotel. And then we would literally spend all day at the convention center studying the Bible more. I would listen to speakers at the convention center talk for 8 hours a day. Hours and hours, 5, 6, 7, 8 speakers, each talking for an hour. Dramas. Hey, I enjoyed it. There were parts of it as a kid I enjoyed, but it was hard sometimes. I had a Bible in my hand doing my studying all day on a Saturday and on a Sunday. And what would we do afterwards? Well, we'd go to the hotel and we'd play in the swimming pool, right? Basically. So that was our vacation. That was a lot of our vacations. But actually, we went on a lot of vacations. I mean, that's one of the things that my parents were really good at. I so cherished the beauty, that they offered to my life when it came to vacations. They really did a fantastic job. I don't know how they did it. Honestly, I don't know how they did it. We did so many day trips and stuff like that. I don't know. I really hand it to my parents for pulling together a family that was as functional as it was. Can't believe they did it. But yeah, so getting back to that question of who I hung around with at school, I hung around with kids who studied all the time. And I studied all the time because I was religious growing up. And that was how it happened. That's how the magic happened, baby. And it's never stopped. It's never ended. I'm not religious today. I'm non-religious, that's for sure. But the studying stuck, right? Today, after I'm done with this um, presentation, I'm gonna eat lunch, and then actually I'm gonna eat breakfast, and then I'm gonna read for an hour. That's what I'm going to do. That is on my schedule. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read for an hour. That's before I do anything else. I still have to go for a workout. I got other tasks I need to do to prepare for this weekend, clean up my car, clean up my house, go to the gym. But I'm going to get that 1 hour in of reading every day. And, it's just, and really, I ought to be studying for my quiz for my welding class coming up on Monday, which is in only 3 days. So, it's kind of funny. Now I do this even when I don't have to do this, right? Like there's no rule that says, "Oh, Miguel's got to take a class and study for his quizzes every week." There's no rule that says that. These classes I take, these night classes I take, completely voluntary. And there's nothing that says that Miguel has to read an hour every day. There's no rule up in the sky. The Constitution of the United States doesn't say, "Hey, Miguel's got to read an hour every day." But he does. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons, of course. But what I'm suggesting is that I grew up as a studier, and that has, it's been something that's sustained me. It's something I've retained. It's a habit that I continue. Two of my favorite, it's kind of funny, two of my favorite YouTubers are Ruby Granger and who's the other one? Oh gosh, Ruby Granger and Unjaded Jade. Okay, on YouTube.com, Ruby Granger and Unjaded Jade are two of my favorite YouTubers. They're both from England, and they're both young people who blog pretty much every day about study techniques. Right? They blog about studying. It's really and I watch these two people study. I watch videos of them studying for their classes. This is how much study is ingrained in my life. It's kind of funny. I never really realized it. And, it's all connected. The school, studying, work. The kind of work I do is also just more study. I know, I'm a studying fiend. It's just the way I get along in the world. It's just how I relate to the world around me. So I want to improve my triglycerides. Well, I've got to study clinical studies. I got to study studies. And I got to study studies of studies, meta-analyses, right? I got to study the studies of studies. It's just what I do, So naturally, this explains about who it was I hung out with in high school. I hung around the kids who studied, the kids who competed in academic decathlon, the kids who competed in the computer science competitions, the kids who participated in the science fairs. That's what I do today. Even I judge science fairs. I'm looking forward to May 3rd and 4th. There's going to be another science fair showing for high school students and middle school students at our local high school, Lompoc High School. And I'm going to be participating and contributing, volunteering my time as a judge. And I'm also volunteering my time promoting the activity. And I love it. These are kids that were studying, they're learning about science. They're learning about the scientific method. And I love supporting that, Kids who are interested in science and learning and studying. It's It's very dear to my heart. It's what I do. It's what I do at work. It's what I do at play. It's what I do um, all the time at school. So I guess you can say that I was highly influenced by my religious upbringing. If it wasn't necessarily the ideas that I continue to be influenced today, it was more like the behaviors and the actions, the activities, right? The continuous activities. It wasn't the ideas, but it was the activities. It was the act of studying. And it also was sort of the extroversion. What's great about being around people who study all the time is they've got lots of ideas and they want to spread those ideas around. And, they're talking about their ideas, the book that they last read or the report that they last wrote. They're talking about the research that's going on, or they're talking about something that they've done. And in a way, that's just how I get along socially too. You know, it's kind of funny that my friends are basically an extension of my high school buddies. That's actually not necessarily true. Today, that's actually a good question. How are the kids that I hung around in high school different from the people that I hang around today? Well, you know what? There's really not a lot of difference. The people who I hang around today, while they're not necessarily academically inclined, they're more what I'd call self-developmentally, self-growth focused. They also actually do read a lot of books too. I'm just interested in hanging around people who are focused on their own personal development, and who are people with ideas about psychology and philosophy, and are interested in life and what's going on in it. And judging by basically I'm going to a class this weekend, the communication class, the NVC conference that's going on in Santa Barbara. I'm looking forward to visiting my friends there. I don't know. People who study, people who are, basically embody what a Homo sapien is, right? Sapiens are lovers of wisdom, right? Lovers of knowledge. Those are the kind of people I hang around with. They're the kind of people I hung around with when I was a kid. They're the kind of people I hang around with now. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this video up. You know that I could speak for hours and hours and hours on end. I want to thank you for sharing this time with me, Em. You are on my mind regularly. I am deeply devoted to you and our relationship. I am focused on continually making changes and doing what I can to connect with you in novel ways that will resonate with you and your life. And I'm here to support you and guide you when I can, offer you resources when I can about to support you and help you grow into the amazing woman that I know that you can be. And I want you to know that I love you and I'm committed to you. And I hope you have a wonderful Friday. I hope your day at school today is challenging and exciting and satisfies your deepest needs. And I'll talk to you later. It may be that I don't talk to you again this rest of this weekend, because I'm going to be in Santa Barbara, baby, at the conference. And so I don't know, maybe I'm basically going to be out and about this weekend, so I may not be able to contact you again. But anyway, I'll talk to you when I talk to you, all right? Bye-bye, girl. I love you.